wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun. Yeah! Kurt Angle, yeah! Why, Triple H? You son of a why? Tell me why. And Tony Khan, this is also on you.
I am going to ruin wrestling.
Just get over it.
Wow. Lots of things went down in the realm of professional wrestling this past week. Of course, we had WrestlePalooza, which was the first WWE PLE to take place in, of course, ESPN. ESPN is the new home for all WWE PLEs. And of course, we also had AEW All Out. AEW All Out right now is officially in the history books. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to watch AEW All Out, and I actually missed out on WrestlePalooza. Actually, as of recently, just finished watching WrestlePalooza, and I beg to ask the question regarding WrestlePalooza, what was really so special about the show? I beg to ask the question, what was realistically special about WrestlePalooza? Because it wasn't a bad show. WrestlePalooza, at the end of the day, was not a bad show whatsoever. But that was that. It was your average WWE PLE. There was nothing really special about the show besides the show being the first PLE on ESPN. You get what I mean? But we're going to be talking about WrestlePalooza and All Out right here on episode 21 of the WrestleHavoc Podcast. I thank you guys so much for watching me right here on not only the WrestleHavoc channel, but also on WNN platforms, that being Facebook and YouTube. So I thank you guys so much for watching me right here on those platforms as well. And before we get into all this craziness, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the friggin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Okay, let's get straight into the talk regarding pro wrestling. I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about, man. A lot of things to talk about. Of course, there was the whole Raja Jackson arrest, which, of course, everybody was talking about. Of course, Raja Jackson, if you guys do not know the incident, he beat up a pro wrestler by the name of Psycho Stu. His real name is Stuart Smith, and he is now been arrested, but unfortunately, he's already bonded out. TMZ Sports. Sorry, my head is literally playing games with me throughout this entire day. I literally woke up like 12 in the afternoon. I overslept. I had a super busy day yesterday. So if I mumble my words a little bit, my apologies, because again, I had a quite long day and I overslept to hell this morning, man. I didn't even wake up this morning. I woke up in the afternoon. But yeah, man. Our first story, we're going to be talking about Raja Jackson. Of course, if you guys do not know the story, Raja Jackson has been officially arrested, but he already got bonded out according to TMZ Sports. TMZ Sports actually broke the story. It's ironic. I was talking to a friend, and they were talking about how they just don't like TMZ, and I agree. I'm not a big fan of TMZ either, but they are always the ones that tend to break the news regarding any sort of incident that goes down or any sort of God forbid, like death that would happen. Like, they are always like the first ones that would report it, which is crazy to think, but it is the truth. But TMZ broke the story that Raja Jackson has officially been arrested. Raja Jackson, the son of UFC legend Quentin Rampage Jackson, was arrested on Thursday for brutally beating down a wrestler at an event late last month. TMZ has learned that the 25-year-old was taken into custody early in the morning and was booked on a felony charge. Jail records show that he's currently still behind bars. That actually all quite changed, being held on a $50,000 bond. The arrest, of course, stems from the ugly incident at the Knox Pro Wrestling events, which used to be a WWE ID affiliate. WWE actually pulled their affiliation with Nox Pro after the incident went down, where Raja slammed Psycho Stu to the mat and then pummeled him with nearly 24 punches as he was unconscious. Mercifully, after 10 to 11 seconds of repeated blows, other wrestlers stepped in and pulled Raja Jackson off of Stuart Smith. The wrestler, who had gotten into spat with Raja just before the event, spent several days in the hospital with numerous injuries, including a fractured malaxia bone. Thankfully, he's since been released and is recovering at home. For Raja's part, he's actually stated that his son should spend some time in jail for his behavior, adding quote-unquote a little community service, anger management courses, and therapy would be good for Raja as well. He actually stated those comments on the Ariel Helwani show. A lot of people were not really too keen on some of Rampage's statements, but Rampage is Rampage. If anything, if there's anybody that you honestly have to feel bad for regarding this whole situation, in my opinion, and look, say what you want about Rampage Jackson regarding this whole incident, because at the end of the day, Rampage does the exact same thing that Raja does, and that is IRL streaming. And if you guys know me, I absolutely despise IRL streaming, simply because of the fact that you literally have a camera on you 24/7. And a lot of these streamers like Jack Doherty, streamers like Neon, they do crazy things to get clicks, and it's honestly pathetic and embarrassing. But considering Rampage is a father, and he's the father of Raja Jackson, I honestly, if you really think about it, I kind of feel bad for Rampage as well, considering, that's his son we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? But it's ironic how Rampage himself, a couple of streams prior, like months prior, I believe, went on stream, and he actually talked about how he actually saved up some money for Raja and his other son, just in case they get into some sort of trouble. Like, he actually set aside bail money for Raja just in case he gets into trouble. And ironically, this situation went down. Now, TMZ Sports reported actually a day later, around 5:09 a.m. on September 19th, TMZ Sports has learned that Raja Jackson was booked on a felony charge of battery with serious bodily injury. He's already bonded out, as a jail official would tell them. So Raja Jackson officially got bailed out by his father. I think it's pretty much safe to say that he got bailed out by his own father, which, I mean, you would expect him to do that. And not only that, $50,000 to a guy like Rampage, who I assume has all the money in the world. I mean, $50,000, even though it's a lot of money, it's from Raja's point of view, and the felony that he committed, in my opinion, is not really that much money. And I mean, with the whole $50,000 bond thing, I mean, you knew immediately that Rampage was going to bail Raja out. Regarding this whole situation, this is honestly pathetic and ridiculous. It goes like, number one, Raja Jackson literally has everything possible to be successful in the world. Like, literally everything possible to be successful in the world. He is the son of one of the greatest UFC fighters, or MMA fighters in general, of all time, and Quentin Rampage Jackson, former UFC fighter, former Pride fighter. I believe later on in his career, he fought in Bellator as well. But literally, Raja has everything given to him. And the fact that he did what he did at that independent wrestling show goes to show you the type of person that he is. And in my opinion, and look, at the end of the day, this whole situation falls not only just on Raja, even though Raja committed the crime. Like, at the end of the day, this is all Raja's fault. But the people surrounding Raja are also the problem. And I think that's what people need to understand. Number one, I'm going to say this right here and right now. Stuart Smith hitting that can, whether that was a fake can or whatever, was unacceptable. He shouldn't have done what he did. But at the same time, he's shown on stream apologizing to Raja not once, not twice, but 3 times. 3 times he apologized to Raja Jackson. 3 times. And Raja, 25 years old, by the way, accepted his apology. Later on in the show, the wrestler that invited Raja Jackson, that being AJ Mana, the wrestler by the name of AJ Mana, who completely crashed out a couple of days later after the incident took place, influenced Raja Jackson to give him his receipt. Now, I talked about this in depth a couple of weeks ago. a receipt in wrestling is a very old school mentality. So if you are a wrestler, right? And wrestler is all about coordination. It's all about communication. The two wrestlers that are in the ring don't exactly fight one another because at the end of the day, wrestling is a show. Wrestling is entertainment. If by any chance a wrestler, and this is the old school mentality, if any wrestler, if you are working with somebody and that person that you are working with tags you for real, hits you with a legitimate punch, you give him his receipt and you hit him right back. That is the old school mentality of thinking when it comes to professional wrestling. AJ Mana told Raja Jackson with the assumption that he thought that Raja knew already what a receipt in professional wrestling was. He told him to give him his receipt. He's like, give him his receipt. Remember what I told you about what a receipt is. AJ Mana assumed that Raja knew what a receipt in pro wrestling was. Meanwhile, Raja doesn't even know anything about professional wrestling. He does not know anything about professional wrestling. He's strictly an MMA fighter. He does not know anything about how the business works. Rampage, who actually worked in the business, actually knows a little to know something about pro wrestling because Rampage actually was involved in wrestling, not like as an actual worker, but he was involved in some sort of angles. I believe he had some involvement with TNA, I believe around 2013. But like at least Rampage had some sort of experience in pro wrestling. So like at least Rampage knows something. Not a lot, some things about pro wrestling, but Raja does not know anything. He's 25 years old. He does not know anything about pro wrestling and how the business works. And AJ Mana influenced him by telling him to give him his receipt. And then, of course, as you guys know the story later on, he goes to the front row and you can literally look on the look of his face. This guy is getting rage baited by his chat on Kick. He's getting rage baited by his chat on Kick. I guarantee you a chat with a bunch of 12-year-olds, that's for sure. But he's getting rage baited and legitimately telling his audience that is watching, millions of people, that he's going to beat up this pro wrestler. He's always wanted to beat up a pro wrestler. This is my chance to beat up this pro wrestler. And he's just getting furiously upset. He's just visibly getting upset. And we all know what went down. At the end of the day, this is all Raja's fault. Raja's 100% at fault when it comes to this whole situation. But also, we have to take into consideration that at the end of the day, we also need to accept the fact that Raja was influenced by a lot of people. He was influenced by a lot of people that honestly should be placed with the blame exactly the way Raja is. Like, I'm sorry, but I blame these people just as much as I blame Raja. And look, Raja at the end of the day made the choice to beat up that pro wrestler. He made that choice, and he suffered the consequences for at least a day. Unfortunately, it should have been longer. But at the end of the day, like, dude, you're a grown ass man, and you decide to beat up a pro wrestler who, by the way, is an Army vet. Stuart Smith went on record, actually, not after the incident. There's actually some videos that came up of Stuart Smith and talking about his experience in pro wrestling. He's a veteran. And he used pro wrestling as a means to escape because Stuart Smith is somebody who suffers from PTSD. He's somebody that suffers through PTSD. And Raja, now granted he didn't know about that, but Raja comes in and just brutally beats this guy down. And this was on stream for everybody to see. So I'm not only going to blame Raja for this, I'm going to blame the promotion, and I'm going to blame the people in charge and the people that were influencing Raja to do what he did. That's it. We have to put blame on those people. We have to put blame on Nox Pro. If anything, I kind of feel bad for Rikishi. I kind of, in the beginning, once this whole incident was going viral and I was talking about it, I kind of, in a way, put the blame on Rikishi, even though he owns 50% ownership. But Rikishi wasn't even there when the whole situation happened. Rikishi wasn't visibly there. Whoever was the promoter, whoever was in charge of everything going on, deserves all of the blame just as much as Raja. Raja deserves to get all of the blame. I'm not defending him in any way, shape, or form. But some of the people that influenced Raja to do what he did, we have to point fingers at them too. And the fact that Nox Pro was encouraging people not to talk to law enforcement goes to show you what type of scam these people are running. I'm telling you, some of these independent promotions, man, they love scamming people, and they love doing shady things. And this is not a knock on independent wrestling as a whole. I know a lot of people make a living off of independent wrestling. I think independent wrestling is great for the industry. Independent wrestling is the lifeblood of this business. It is. It's the lifeblood of this business. But we're not going to shy away from the fact that there are very shady promoters out there. There are very shady promoters out there. Very shady. Not everybody, but very shady. I mean, this is coming from somebody, me myself, who goes to independent wrestling shows. I go to independent wrestling shows, but I mean, you know when you watch a freak show and when you don't. You know when you watch a freak show and when you don't. And this whole thing that went down was a freak show at the end of the day. Raja Jackson got arrested, but fortunately he's already bonded out. Of course he is. $50,000 is nothing to Rampage Jackson, so he's going to pay those $50,000. And he used that money he used that money for good use, eh? He used that money for good use, but whatever, it is what it is. Those are my thoughts on the whole Raja Jackson arrest. Continuing on with the WrestleHavoc podcast, we're going to be talking about WrestlePalooza. WrestlePalooza, of course, went down, and a lot of people were giving their thoughts on what went down with the event. Of course, this was the first WWE PLE to take place on the new ESPN app, and everybody was curious. Now, me personally, I had the honor and privilege of not paying those $30. Now, before you accuse me of doing something that I shouldn't be doing, listen, I got Fubo TV because I was never subscribed to Fubo TV, and I got the free trial, which meant that I was able to get ESPN Unlimited with the free trial, which this free trial, I believe, lasts from 5 to 7 days. So I didn't have to pay the $30, but unfortunately I'm going to have to pay the $30. But that's just reality. That's just the reality of the situation. But when it comes to WrestlePalooza, and I'm going to be talking about the results for All Out. Keep in mind, I haven't watched All Out as of yet because, again, I actually missed both shows as they were going live yesterday because I was super busy. I had some obligations that I needed to fulfill, unfortunately. And I actually got a chance to catch up on WrestlePalooza. Overall, I thought WrestlePalooza was a good show. WrestlePalooza was a good show. It was not bad. But at the end of the day, I have to ask multiple questions regarding this whole show. I have to ask multiple questions. Number one, was it worth counter programming AEW? And number two, was it worth, think about this. Was it worth, I don't want to say the $30, but don't you think you could have done more with this show? Because at the end of the day, what I saw when it came to WrestlePalooza, what I saw was your average and normal WWE PLE. If we are going to be brutally honest, this was your average WWE premium live event or pay-per-view. I know pay-per-view is kind of like no longer a thing anymore, especially with the whole UFC deal, but that's another story for another time. This felt like your average WWE PLE. Number one, the format of the show. 5 matches on this card. Now, I, for one, actually am somebody that defends the 5-match format because I do believe that there's a thing called quality over quantity. But I feel like a lot of people are starting to come to the realization that they're starting to hate on the 5-match format because you see a lot of commercials all over the place. There's sponsored plastered everywhere on the show. Like, a lot of people are getting sick and tired of it. I feel like if the outrage of the 5-match format hurts you so bad, go watch an AEW pay-per-view. But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to try to be neutral. It'd be better if WWE at least pushed for at least maybe a 6-match format, maybe a 6 or 7-match format. They're probably going to stick to the 5-match format. And honestly, for me, the viewer, it's not that bad. It's not that bad for me as a viewer, because again, they showcase their more important matches. Not only that, the show goes by quickly. It's not like an AEW pay-per-view. And look, I understand why AEW puts like maybe 10 matches on the card, because you're paying 50, or if you're watching on HBO Max, you're paying 40 for the pay-per-view. I get that. They want to give you the best bang for your buck. But my problem with AEW regarding their match format, especially when it comes to their pay-per-views, is the fact that there are many instances where they would have like maybe 12 matches on one pay-per-view card. And for example, if they started their show like roughly around 8 p.m., the show would drag out roughly almost to 1 p.m., which is absolutely ludicrous to say the least. Absolutely ludicrous to say the least. And we will be talking about start times for AEW, because there's a lot of talk about AEW possibly maybe moving their shows from night shows to afternoon shows, which I will be talking about, because keep in mind, the only reason why All Out was moved from 8 p.m. to 3 p.m. was because of the fact that WWE had a show on that day, and they wanted to avoid that. They wanted to avoid going head to head with WWE, which is a smart business play if you're AEW. I don't care what anybody says. It is a smart business play, because if you go head to head with WWE, you are going to get crushed regarding any facet, whether that is television or pay-per-view, because all eyes are going to be on that WWE show. People need to understand, even though AEW is a relatively big company, AEW still caters to that niche internet wrestling audience, which we're all internet fans, we're all wrestling fans, but at the end of the day, that is a small niche audience. And that is an audience that has made them sustainable and made them profitable, and that is great. I wouldn't necessarily say profitable, but they're making money. They have a multi-million-dollar deal with WBD, and of course, they now have their pay-per-views on HBO Max. They now have their weekly shows on HBO Max. So from a business standpoint, AEW is relatively successful, but they do cater to that small audience, and there's nothing wrong with that, because they are the alternative. But WWE is more mainstream, and they're going to get all of the headlines, and that's the harsh reality. So it was very smart on AEW to move their pay-per-view from 8 p.m. to 3 p.m. It was just smart on their end. But in terms of, we're going to be talking about the start times later on, but in terms of the match format for WrestlePalooza, I thought it was fine. But I mean, was the show bad? No, it was not a bad show. If anything, it was actually a pretty good show. But I mean, I feel like WWE overhyped this show a little bit too much. On one hand, I understand, because it is their first show on ESPN. Of course, they're going to overhype this show. But at the same time, if you look at the show itself, it just felt like your normal average WWE PLE. It just felt like your average WWE PLE, and that's the harsh reality regarding the whole situation. But in terms of WrestlePalooza, again, I thought the show was pretty good for what it was. It was not a bad show. Let's go over the match results. Of course, we had the opening match, which was John Cena taking on Brock Lesnar. Now, originally, when there was rumors about this show possibly taking place, everybody, of course, immediately assumed that Brock Lesnar and John Cena was going to be the main event for WrestlePalooza. This actually was not the main event of the show. The main event of the show was Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. And if anything, thank God it wasn't the main event, because this match, John Cena versus Brock Lesnar, was kind of a letdown if you really want to think about it. It was, if you really think about it, kind of a letdown, and it was not necessarily something that I'm gonna say this right here, like not necessarily something that I'm kind of happy about, because we all know the quality of work that Brock Lesnar and John Cena are capable of doing. They're capable of bringing great matches, and they always had great chemistry with one another. I felt like they try to go for the SummerSlam 2014 route. If you guys haven't watched that match, of course, SummerSlam 2014 was the match where John Cena was just dominated by Brock Lesnar throughout the entirety of the match. Like, how many freaking suplexes? How many Germans did he hit? It was a lot. But I will say, WWE for a short second got me hooked with this match. They got me hooked with this match roughly in the middle of the match where John Cena hit 3 FUs. And speaking of FUs, of course, the FU is the attitude adjustment. I call it the FU because I prefer to call it the FU. But one thing that I liked was that Michael Cole in commentary, he actually mentioned, and this, I love Michael Cole. I used to hate Michael Cole as a commentator. Now I love Michael Cole as a commentator. But he actually mentioned the reason why John Cena initially called that move the FU was in direct response to Brock Lesnar. Because keep in mind, this was 2003. So Brock Lesnar, by that point, within months of him making his debut in 2002, won the WWE title. John Cena around that time in 2002 made his debut. But in 2003, that was where he started to really establish his character. Michael Cole actually mentioned on commentary that John Cena naming his finishing move the FU was in direct response to Brock Lesnar with his finishing move that being called the F5. So I actually liked that. But of course, where WWE got me hooked for a small second was John Cena hitting the 3 AAs, the 3 attitude adjustments, but Brock Lesnar getting up and then Brock Lesnar immediately going straight for the attack and hitting 3 F5s. And the crowd was actually like, holy crap, what is going on? But then after that, Brock Lesnar started dominating, and that was really where like all the excitement just kind of went down. And the match ended abruptly. Like the match ended abruptly. I'm not going to sit here and say like the match was the worst match ever. I'm going to sit here and say that match was disappointing. That's all I'm going to say. The match between Brock Lesnar and John Cena at the end of the day was disappointing. Now, regarding the whole thing that happened after the match where Brock Lesnar beat up the referee and he hit an F5 on John Cena. Of course, he attacked Corey Graves the night before on SmackDown. I mean, I assume we're probably going to be getting a rematch between Brock Lesnar and John Cena. A lot of people are making the assumption that we're probably going to be getting the rematch between John Cena and Brock Lesnar for Saturday night's main event, as that's going to be John Cena's last match, which I don't see that being the case. I mean, at the end of the day, I do believe John Cena has say in who he wants his last match to be, but Brock Lesnar as John Cena's last match to me is not... It's a little questionable regarding, especially with all the information that we know about Brock Lesnar regarding the whole Vince McMahon Janelle Grant lawsuit. It's very shady. And speaking of that, I mean, bro, the posters that you saw during this show were very questionable. There were posters about WWE counter programming. There was a lot of posters on Brock Lesnar. We all know why we all know why Brock Lesnar should not be on this show. Like, we all know what Brock Lesnar did. There was a poster that said that, which was hilarious. But a lot of funny posters, man, on this show. A lot of funny posters. But at the end of the day, John Cena versus Brock Lesnar was not a bad match, but a match that ended abruptly, but also a match that was kind of disappointing, I should say. I mean, and imagine this being the main event. Imagine this being the main event of the show. Oh my God, it would have been the outrage would have been insane, and rightfully so. But I assume we're probably going to be getting a rematch between the two. My prediction, I think we're actually going to be getting this rematch for Survivor Series, but depending on the matter regarding War Games, that may not be the case because, of course, we can't forget Paul Heyman doing the introductions for Brock Lesnar. So that was actually great to see. And, of course, the night before on SmackDown, they had some sort of reunion backstage. Could it be a scenario where Brock Lesnar joins Seth Rollins' team for War Games, depending on what the War Games match is going to be? I assume it's going to be involving the Vision taking on whoever, but I assume we're probably going to be getting Brock Lesnar involved in Seth Rollins' group, the Vision, in some way, shape, or form. So we're going to have to wait and see when it comes to that whole scenario. But, yeah, pretty disappointing match to open up WrestlePalooza. We had the reunion of the Usos. Yes, the Usos came back, or back together, I should say, and they faced off against Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. Not a bad match, of course. LA Knight was the special guest referee. It was not a bad match, But I'm going to be honest, it was a match that, to me, I didn't really care about, unfortunately. And I love Jey Uso, I love Jimmy, I love Braun, I love Bronson Reed. But to me, I just didn't really care. I unfortunately just didn't really care about what went down in this match. And the heels ended up getting the win, which, I mean, is very questionable. I mean, if you're bringing back the Usos and you're pairing them back together, I mean, don't you think you would expect them to win? And the fact that they lost, to me, is just kind of dumb. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Moving on, we had Stephanie Vaquera, and if you really want to talk about match of the night, you gotta have Stephanie Vaquera versus Io Sky. I'm not shy to say this, but Stephanie Vaquera and Io Sky have great chemistry with one another. They just have phenomenal chemistry with one another. Stephanie Vaquera, and again, this is another thing that I'm not afraid to say, Stephanie Vaquera is by far the most marketable, or actually, I don't want to say most marketable. She's by far one of the best women's wrestlers, if not the best women's wrestler in the world. And we're talking about a lot of great women's wrestlers right now. I mean, Toni Storm, in my opinion, Toni Storm is at the top of that echelon. If I were to put a number 1 or number 2, I don't know in what order, but like I'd put Stephanie Vaquera and Toni Storm as like one of the 2 best female wrestlers today. Stephanie Vaquera, I mean, think about this. And Stephanie Vaquera, by the way, is the new women's world champion. I forgot to mention that, but the chemistry that both Stephanie Vaquera and Io Sky gave to the crowd in Indianapolis was just off the chain. Absolutely off the chain. If you are into like a lot of technical wrestling, this is definitely the match to watch. They just gelled well together. They just absolutely gelled well together. And Stephanie Vaquera ended up hitting a spinal tap for the finish. And definitely, if you haven't watched this match, definitely give it a watch. But they gelled really well together. The crowd was just flat out invested in this match. If you are strictly a fan of wrestling that just loves watching the in-ring wrestling, definitely give this match a watch. Stephanie Vaquera is the new women's world champion. But again, Stephanie Vaquera is one of the best female wrestlers in the world. If you were to put her at the top of the echelon, I'd put her and Toni Storm at the top because, number one, think about this. Stephanie Vaquera, at least well over a year ago, like my first introduction to Stephanie Vaquera was her match against Mercedes at Forbidden Door last year. And that was how she got signed to WWE. People need to understand. How did Stephanie Vaquera get signed by WWE? They saw her match with Mercedes at the AEW pay-per-view in Long Island last year. That's how they signed Stephanie Vaquera. Because I believe Stephanie Vaquera at the time was working for CMLL, and AEW has a relationship with CMLL. WWE saw her match with Mercedes, and they swooped her up immediately, which was a smart play on WWE's end. And immediately, once she came into NXT, she became one of the top prospects in NXT. She became one of the top female wrestlers in NXT, and they immediately thrusted her to the main roster earlier this year. And now she's the women's champion. I actually expected WWE to do the slow build. I actually thought Io Sky was going to get the win, but they were like, nope, we're putting the belt on her now. And honestly, I have no problem with that because again, Stephanie Vaquera deserves it. Well over a year ago, we didn't even know who Stephanie Vaquera was. Stephanie Vaquera debuted with WWE under NXT a year ago, and now look at her. She is a world champion on the main roster. Well deserved by Stephanie Vaquera. Stephanie Vaquera is one of the best female wrestlers in the world, and I don't care what anybody says. Put her up against anybody. Stephanie Vaquera is absolutely fantastic at what she does. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Io Sky versus Stephanie Vaquera. Phenomenal match. CM Punk and AJ Lee. AJ Lee returns to the ring for the first time in a little over 10 years, taking on CM Punk and Becky Lynch. If there was any match that could have easily main evented this show, it would have been this match. This, or especially like now what we know what happened with John Cena and Brock Lesnar, this or the Io and Stephanie Vaquera match could have easily main evented this show. Now, from a logistical standpoint, I would understand them not putting Stephanie Vaquera and Io Sky in the main event, which I would have loved for that to happen, but WWE wants to put the stars at the forefront. But if there was any match that could have easily main evented, if there was any match that easily could have been main evented, it would have been, honestly, this mixed tag team match. Of course, AJ Lee returned to the ring for the first time in a little over 10 years. Her last match, I believe, was on the last Raw, or the Raw after WrestleMania 31, which was all the way back in 2015, which, so the fact that 2015 was 10 years ago is just wild. Absolutely wild to see. It's insane. But this match, and it's usually the case with mixed tag team matches. The thing about mixed tag team matches is it's not really much about the wrestling itself when it comes to these mixed tag team matches. It's more about the moments that happen. I know WWE loves constantly throwing in your face, oh my God, this is all about moments. They always throw that in your face. They always throw that in your face. But in terms of matches like this, that being the mixed tag team match, it's always either chaos or just pure entertainment. And this match was pure entertainment. Like AJ Lee, for her, I mean, look, is there a little bit of ring rust? Yes, but we said the same thing about CM Punk with this match against Darby Allin all the way back in 2021. When he had his first match after 7 years, it was not perfect, but Punk still looked great in the process. And as you saw his matches later on, as the months went on in AEW, then later on going into WWE, Punk started to really get his groove back. And look at Punk now. In this recent run across both AEW and WWE, Punk has had some of the best matches of his career. Of course, his match against MJF in the dog collar match at Revolution a couple of years ago. His match against Drew McIntyre at Bad Blood last year. You know, he's had some great matches. So I feel like we're going to be seeing the same thing with AJ Lee. So for all you people crapping on AJ Lee saying, oh, she did not look good. At the end of the day, it's all about ring rust. Ring rust happens to everybody. And Punk experienced that ring rust when he first came back in the ring after 7 years. AJ Lee was out of wrestling for 10. Punk was out of wrestling for 7. AJ Lee, that being CM Punk's wife, was out of the ring for 10. It's longer. There's, of course, going to be some ring rust, but you got to give her time. And AJ looked great. AJ looked great. In my opinion, she looked great. But some of the moments that happened in this match, I mean, number one, there was a moment where Punk applied the sharpshooter on Seth Rollins, and at the same time, AJ Lee applied the Black Widow on Becky Lynch, and both had those submissions applied at the same time. Meanwhile, both of the heels reversed, and they both hit a pedigree at the same time, which was fantastic to see. And then, of course, another moment in the match happened where everybody was on the announce table, and essentially, I believe it was Becky Lynch who threw AJ Lee on CM Punk, and I believe CM Punk had Seth Rollins up. Correct me if I'm wrong. I gotta go back and watch the match again. This match was pure chaos, but she threw AJ Lee on CM Punk, and they got destroyed then and there. But the match ended, of course, and honestly, it just made total sense for this match to end the way it did, with AJ Lee making Becky Lynch tap out. If you're going to have somebody come, I don't want to say essentially out of retirement, but like if you're going to have somebody wrestle a match for the first time in 10 years and it's a big deal, you got to have them, you got to book them for them to have the win. You just have to. And them WWE booking AJ Lee to make Becky Lynch tap out was honestly the smartest move that they could have made. The smartest move that they could have made, in my opinion. Because again, it only establishes now that AJ Lee is going to be a very prominent figure in the women's division. You know, this is not just some one-off. People need to understand, AJ Lee's return is not just some one-off. AJ Lee's, she's going to be around for a while. She's going to be a part of the roster. And I assume she's probably going to take that women's IC title away from Becky Lynch. It's going to happen. We all know it's going to happen. And we're going to be getting that one-on-one match between Becky Lynch and AJ Lee. When? I do not know. I mean, that sounds like a WrestleMania match right then and there. But still, it was not a bad match whatsoever. This was a phenomenal match for what it was. Definitely enjoyable. AJ Lee looked absolutely great. And look, I love the chemistry, and it's weird for me to say that because, I mean, AJ Lee and CM Punk are both married. They're married to each other, but like they just have I mean, I assume, and I don't know anything, they have great chemistry behind this, like like in real life, but like in the ring, I mean, they have phenomenal chemistry as well. They just gel well together. And I thought they did a phenomenal job in this match. Again, AJ Lee, she did have some ring rust, but that is to be expected. We all said the same thing about CM Punk when he first came back in his match against Darby Allin. We said the same thing. AJ Lee, I guarantee you in the next couple of months, she's going to have some of the best matches of her career. And that's not me exaggerating. That is not me exaggerating. It's me telling the truth. Because everybody said that about CM Punk. Meanwhile, in this recent run, we've been getting some of the best matches of CM Punk's career. And CM Punk is in his 40s. So just give AJ Lee time. She's going to be doing great. Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre. I'm going to be honest. I didn't care about this match. And this was the main event of the show. You would expect this match to be great, but this match didn't last even like 20 minutes. This match, I mean, for all the time that they had, it just didn't really feel like a pay-per-view main event. Like, it would have been more smart if WWE booked John Cena and Brock Lesnar as the main event. But knowing what we know now with the outcome of that match, it probably would have been disappointing. But this match with Cody and Drew McIntyre was just as disappointing. Just as disappointing, in my opinion. So, where do we go from here? Cody Rhodes beats Drew McIntyre clean. Where does Drew McIntyre go from now on? I'm very curious. The last time Drew McIntyre won a world title was at WrestleMania 40 last year. And that only lasted a couple of minutes. Or a couple of seconds. I think it was a couple of minutes. By a couple of minutes, I mean like a minute or two. Where do we go from Drew McIntyre? Where do we go with Drew McIntyre at this point? Drew McIntyre, in my opinion, if there's somebody who I feel is a little upset about how he is being utilized, I think it is Drew McIntyre, in my opinion. Drew McIntyre, this current incarnation of Drew McIntyre, since the CM Punk feud has been absolutely fantastic. He should be like literally at the top of the echelon. And yes, he did main event this show, but honestly, if there's a perfect guy to take the belt away from Cody Rhodes, it is Drew McIntyre. In my opinion. It is Drew McIntyre. I don't care what anybody says. Drew McIntyre is somebody who kind of lives in that bubble of the internet, but at the same time does that crossover to mainstream just so well that like he just doesn't give a crap about what he says. Like that's how good Drew McIntyre is. From a presentation standpoint and from a promo standpoint. We've seen this with the CM Punk feud. Like Drew McIntyre knows how to utilize the internet super well. He knows how to get people talking. And in my opinion, like I understand why WWE had Cody Rhodes retain the title. It just makes sense. He's the top guy. But I mean, Drew McIntyre could literally be a top heel, like a legitimate top heel as a champion. And I don't know. I just don't know where WWE is going to take Drew McIntyre in this echelon at this point. Is he even going to go after a world title? Or is he going to have a rematch with Cody? We're going to have to wait and see. But I mean, where does Drew McIntyre go from here at this point? Like, where does he go? Where does he go at this point? Where does he go? I'm very conflicted. What, is he going to go back to feuding with CM Punk? And we all know he's not going to go back to feuding with CM Punk. That feud is over. That feud is over. That feud is over. You know? That feud is over. They already had 3 matches. One at SummerSlam, then at Bash in Berlin, and then at Bad Blood. That's it. Where else do we go from here? I don't know. But still, this match felt... It didn't even, like a lot of people were saying, like, this is the type of main event that you would see on, like, a Raw or a SmackDown. And, like, yeah, it's true. And it sucks because Cody and Drew are great, but I just didn't really care about this match, man. I didn't really care a lot about this match, unfortunately. So, yeah, that was WrestlePalooza. But that begs the question. Was it really worth... Look, at the end of the day, WrestlePalooza was not a bad show. At the end of the day, WrestlePalooza was not a bad show whatsoever. It was a pretty good show. If there was a ranking I'd give it, or a grade I'd give it a 7 out of 10. And that's me being nice. But with the way WWE promoted this show with, this is going to be the biggest show ever, blah, 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 you know, and look, I understand why they do that. It's because number one, they're masters at promotion. And number two, it is their first PLE on ESPN. So again, it makes total sense as to why they are doing it. It makes sense. It just does. It makes total sense as to why they are doing it. It makes sense. But if you look at the quality of the show, and again, the show was not bad, was it really worth all of the hype? Was it really worth all of the hype that they were giving? Like, was it really worth all the hype? The answer is no. Was it really worth them? Was it really worth counter-programming AEW? Because keep in mind, this show was announced just out of the blue. Like, this show was announced just like quickly, like out of nowhere. It was nothing really special if you really think about it. It kind of just happened out of the blue at the end of the day. It just happened out of the blue. They announced this show as their first PLE on ESPN. Keep in mind, the deal was supposed to start next year, but through some legal way of doing it, they were like, "Nah, we're going to start this deal early." They wanted that money quick. Because you know how WWE is. They always go where the money's at. And look, at the end of the day, they're a business. I can't really judge them, but was it really worth counter-programming AEW? Now, I'm going to be talking about the AEW show. I'm going to be giving you guys the results. Now, keep in mind, I didn't watch the AEW pay-per-view last night. Again, I missed both WrestlePalooza and All Out. I recently got a chance to catch up on WrestlePalooza, but All Out, I didn't get a chance to watch. I've only seen highlights of it. But from what it looks like, there were like 14 matches on this card, and that is including the tailgate pre-show, the Saturday tailgate brawl, I think is what they were calling it. And I actually did get a chance to watch the pre-show. And this is a little different pre-show that they did, considering they were airing this show on TNT. And honestly, it was like very reminiscent to like Sunday Night Heat, because if you guys don't remember, Sunday Night Heat used to do something very similar, where like in most weeks they'd just be filled like matches that just served no purpose at all. But then like when it was a pay-per-view day, they would always do live feeds from that location of where the pay-per-view is taking place. And they'd hype up the show to try to get last minute buys. So I think it was smart for AEW to do something like that. But the pre-show, we had Samoa Joe and Powerhouse Hobbs defeating the Workhorsemen. Daniel Garcia, this new version of Daniel Garcia, who, by the way, is now a part of the Death Riders. And I know a lot of people love crapping on the Death Riders, but I'm gonna be honest. I'm actually kind of digging the Death Riders now. The fact that I like the fact that Jon Moxley is no longer the champion and no longer keeping the belt hostage. In my opinion, to me, that is like the best thing now about the Death Riders, is the fact that Jon Moxley does not have the belt. But I mean, people need to understand, like, you can complain so much about the Death Riders all you want, but if it wasn't for the Death Riders, we probably wouldn't have gotten the match that we have gotten with Jon Moxley and Hangman Page at All In, you know? I'm really digging the Death Riders. And not only that, I think the addition of Daniel Garcia was a great move. I know, again, a lot of people my apologies. A lot of people crap on the Death Riders. I understand that. But I mean, Daniel Garcia is not, I mean, him joining the group is actually not a bad move, because if he hadn't joined the Death Riders, what was AEW going to do with Daniel Garcia? You want to know where Daniel Garcia was going to be if he hadn't joined the group? He was going to be lost in the shuffle. I feel like what the Death Riders is doing for a guy like Daniel Garcia is exactly what the Jericho Appreciation Society should have done with Daniel Garcia. Everybody expected Daniel Garcia to break away as this big star, but at the end of the day, he just didn't do anything. Like right after he broke off of the Jericho Appreciation Society, again, Daniel Garcia, yeah, he would win the TNT champion numerous times. Yeah, he was slightly over with the audience with his dance, but really, what was Daniel Garcia doing? He was being wasted at that point. Being wasted. The whole Jericho Appreciation Society angle should have it should have literally elevated Daniel Garcia, and instead it actually went backwards and backfired. And for like 2 years, they didn't do anything with Daniel Garcia. I think Daniel Garcia being a part of the Death Riders gives new life to Daniel Garcia. And it gives more of a focus on his in-ring ability, which is his strongest strength. So I think Daniel Garcia joining the group, to me, is not a bad idea at all. It really is not a bad idea, in my opinion. But Daniel Garcia defeated Katsuyori Shibata. A couple of matches other than the pre-show that I just didn't care about. Hologram and Paragon defeated the Frat House. Harley Cameron and Mina Shirakawa and Queen Amidala and Will Nightingale defeated Megan Bayne, Penelope Ford, Julie Hart, and Sky Blue. And then moving on to the main card again, I haven't watched All Out yet. I'm actually gonna be watching the show right after I finish this live stream. But Edge, Adam Copeland, and Christian Cage defeated FTR, and we had a couple of surprises on this show. Think about this. AEW didn't even tease you with surprises, and they gave you surprises on the show more than they did WWE. But Adam Copeland and Christian Cage defeated FTR. Number one, and this moment actually went viral on the internet. Adam Copeland actually paid homage. He paid homage to John Cena. Because if you don't remember, a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, John Cena faced off against Sami Zayn, which was a great match, by the way. A match that ended abruptly due to interference because of Brock Lesnar. But John Cena, of course, paid homage to Edge, who, by the way, if you know your wrestling history, which I assume you do, I know I do, is one of John Cena's greatest rivals. You know, a lot of people tend to pinpoint, and WWE themselves pinpointed this in their own documentaries, that John Cena's Hulk Hogan, like Edge is the equivalent of like Roddy Piper. So like Edge is the Roddy Piper to John Cena's Hulk Hogan. That's what essentially this whole feud with Edge and John Cena was. That's what it was. And Edge is one of John Cena's greatest rivals. If we lived in a perfect world and Edge was not in AEW, one of John Cena's matches and would have been against Edge. And I wouldn't be against Edge being John Cena's last match if Edge was still with WWE, but he's no longer with WWE. He's with AEW. So unfortunately, that's never going to happen, which sucks. Which sucks because both men are still active. John Cena is going to be active up until December, and he's not wrestling Edge. Edge is still active. He's been active since 2020 after coming out of retirement because he retired in 2011. He came out of retirement, which, by the way, he was forced to retire. It was not like he wanted to retire. He was forced to retire. And, you know, it really does suck that Edge doesn't get the chance to wrestle John Cena. But, like, I'm not going to, like, crucify Edge because he's in AEW. I know a lot of people on the internet are making out, are creating assumptions that, Edge should have never left WWE. Ha, 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 ha. He made a big mistake by choosing AEW. I'm like, bro, Edge wanted to go to AEW because he's always wanted to go to AEW since the company started. Remember, keep in mind, he was actually in talks with AEW when the company started. People never talk about that, but it's actually true. He was in talks with the company. But, I mean, still, like, in a perfect world, I would have done John Cena versus Edge as the last match. But unfortunately, we're never going to be getting that. But John Cena, of course, a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown in his match against Sami Zayn for the U.S. title, he paid homage to Edge by hitting the spear. And foolishly, and I understand why Michael Cole did it, but foolishly on commentary, Michael Cole was like, he's paying homage to one of his greatest rivals, Roman Reigns. And I'm like, no, you idiot. He is paying homage to Edge, not Roman Reigns. Jesus Christ. And I understand why he said it because still, like, but like, still, like, he said Roman Reigns. Like, no, that was an homage to Edge. He did all the mannerisms, everything. But, well, in this match, Adam Copeland paid homage to John Cena, and the crowd was in favor of it. You know, everybody talks about AEW. They don't care about WWE. Nah, bro. The AEW fans, they watch WWE. They're lying to you if they don't. But he did the whole "you can't see me" 5-knuckle shuffle deal, and the crowd was just eating it up. Just eating it up. And you know what? I do not mind that whatsoever. It was a great homage. I loved it. Support wrestling. End of story. But we also had Beth Phoenix show up on this show, beating up Stokely Hathaway, which was great to see. Moving on. So Adam Copeland and Christian Cage defeats FTR. I assume we're probably going to be shifting over towards a tag team title run between these two guys because, I mean, these guys deserve the tag team championships. And also, another thing I want to mention is, and I talked about this weeks ago on the podcast, but I'm loving the chemistry between Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. Like, I'm loving their chemistry a lot because, like, Christian Cage, even though he is a babyface now, he still acts like a prick. It goes to show you the power of his heel work. Christian Cage, this version that you see of Christian Cage now is the best version of Christian Cage. And I'm saying this, and look, Christian Cage is a guy that has had a 20-plus year career, a more than 20-year career. And I'm saying that his AEW work is probably the best work of his career. And that's including his TNA work. And look, before AEW, his best run was in TNA. From 2005 to late 2008, because then he joined WWE in 2009. He returned to the company in 2009, and they booked him a part of ECW. You remember his return? How he came back on a random episode of ECW, and Todd Grisham on commentary was like, "It's Christian," like not even being excited, like he was like casually on commentary, "It's Christian." Now, I assume Vince McMahon on commentary told him to say that, but that's another story for another time. But Christian Cage's best work is with AEW. And I love the fact that he's still, like, I love that dynamic between current Adam Copeland and current Christian Cage. It's great stuff. But AC and Christian Cage get the win. Eddie Kingston made his return and defeated Big Bill. Now, I know a lot of people were very questioned by the fact that AEW announced the return of Eddie Kingston. Number one, I haven't seen the match yet, but it's great to see Eddie Kingston back. He's been out for a long time. Eddie Kingston, in my opinion, is really one of the bright spots. And there's a lot of bright spots in AEW, but in my opinion, he's one of the bright spots of AEW from a talent standpoint and from a promo standpoint. Like, whenever Eddie Kingston whenever Eddie Kingston cuts a promo on the microphone, he gives it to you. And he gives you that real authenticity that you don't really see with a lot of wrestlers nowadays across both promotions. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a lot of people that cut really good promos, and there's also a lot of people that cut really bad promos. Eddie Kingston is one of those people that cuts really good promos, but not just that, he makes you feel. And I feel like, unfortunately, and it's not everybody. And look, it's a small portion. It's a small portion, but there's a lot of wrestlers, maybe like the ones that are coming up, that you see and you just don't feel whenever they speak. Like, for example, Nia Jax. Whenever she speaks on the microphone, I do not feel that genuineness whatsoever. I feel like she doesn't care. And look, I'm not a fan of Nia Jax, and I'm not afraid to say it. That's no disrespect to Nia Jax. I'm just not a fan of her work. Like Ronda Rousey, when she had her recent run with WWE, I mean, Ronda Rousey fell off badly. Like, it's crazy. But Ronda Rousey, with no disrespect, was not a fan of her recent work with WWE a couple of years ago. Her work sucked. It sucked so bad because her promos sounded like she did not want to be there. Eddie Kingston is somebody that definitely, when he speaks, you listen. And it's great that Eddie Kingston is back, man. He's been gone for a long time. But it also begs the question, was it smart for AEW to announce Eddie Kingston? Was it smart for AEW to announce Eddie Kingston's return ahead of time instead of it being a surprise? Yes and no. Yes, because number one, it's Eddie Kingston and it gets people excited. I don't know if that's going to correlate to last minute pay-per-view buys, but it is what it is. But no, because Eddie Kingston could be doing more with a return. Like, for example, Jon Moxley on this show defeated Darby Allin. That would have been the perfect segue to bring back Eddie Kingston, because Eddie Kingston has history with Jon Moxley. Some of the best AEW matches out there are with Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. I mean, and I definitely assume Eddie Kingston is going to be involved in some way, shape, or form in this Death Rider storyline, because AEW shows no signs of ending the storyline with the Death Riders. They just show no signs. But I do see Eddie Kingston joining up with not joining up with the group, but like being involved against the group, like being involved in the storyline and being a part of Team AEW to take down the Death Riders. You know what I'm saying? It would have been a perfect segue to like really bring back Eddie Kingston, in my opinion, in that capacity. But I assume AEW is still regardless going to go into that route. But at the end of the day, for me, I don't mind at all whether or not AEW announces returning in advance. But still, Eddie Kingston, in my opinion, is the best at what he does. And Eddie Kingston, he's going to do great things. And I'm glad Eddie Kingston is back. Mark Briscoe defeated MJF, and from the clips that I saw, it was a freaking bloody match. Now, keep in mind, Mark Briscoe got the win, but we have to give our praises to MJF. Now, again, I haven't watched the match in full. I've only seen highlights, and they're freaking brutal. They are freaking brutal. I'm going to give my flowers to MJF. MJF, and, you know, everybody gives their flowers to MJF, but people need to understand MJF is like one of the best pro wrestlers in the world. Oh, but he hasn't really been doing great work as of late. A lot of the stuff he's doing has been beneath him. I don't care. He's one of the best professional wrestlers in the world, period. He is. He is. And I don't care what anybody says. He's one of the best professional wrestlers in the world. Now, that said, why am I putting over MJF in a match like this, especially in a match that he lost? Well, MJF, if you guys don't know, has had a brief stint in Mexico in CMLL, and I believe he was the CMLL world champion, I believe. I believe he was the CMLL world champion for a while. MJF has been doing a lot of work in Mexico as of late because AEW has the relationship with CMLL. MJF had a bloodbath less than 24 hours before with Mystico, or with Sin Cara, whatever you want to call him. He had a bloodbath. A bloodbath. BLOOD. BATH. Bloodbath. With Mark Briscoe. A bloodbath with Mark Briscoe. Or not Mark Briscoe, with Mystico in Mexico, at Arena Mexico. And then less than 24 hours later, this man goes to frickin' war with Mark Briscoe. It's insane, man. The quality of work that this guy pulls is God tier at this point. God tier. Future Hall of Famer. I don't care what. If AEW ever had a Hall of Fame, I'd put MJF over like the elite. And I'm dead serious when I say that. I am dead serious when I say that. If AEW had a Hall of Fame, I'd put MJF as like the top echelon, the top of the list of future AEW Hall of Famers, because at the end of the day, MJF and all of his work that he's been doing in AEW has been God tier throughout these last 6 years. But he had a literal bloodbath with Mark Briscoe. Ricochet and the Gates of Agony defeated the Hurt Syndicate. Mercedes Moné retained her TBS championship against Riho. Kazuchika Okada defeated Konosuke Takeshita and Máscara Dorada to retain his unified title. I've heard great things about that match. I heard that was the match of the night, so I'm definitely going to give that match a watch. Jon Moxley defeated Darby Allin in the coffin match with the help of the return of Pac. Yes, Pac is officially back with AEW with a new look from the clips that I've seen. And this guy cut his hair and he's actually wearing clothes. Because every time when Pac would come out in like a promo segment, he's always in his wrestling attire. This guy is actually like wearing clothes, which is funny to see. And he has a weird new hairstyle. It's so weird seeing Pac with short hair, but Pac is back and he helped Jon Moxley defeat Darby Allin in the coffin match. Another match that I heard was really good was the triple threat. The four-way for the women's title, as Chris Statlander defeated Toni Storm, Tekla, and Jamie Hayter and won her first AEW Women's World Championship. Chris Statlander, man, that was a shock. Apparently, this outcome actually came to a shock to a lot of people. They expected either Toni Storm or Tekla to get the win, because everybody's been talking about Tekla and all that stuff, and she's phenomenal at what she does. But Chris Statlander actually came unexpectedly, and you know what? Good on the AEW for actually the table with AEW. So it's great that Chris Statlander is the women's champion. But that also begs the question, where is AEW going to go with Toni Storm? as a character. Where are they going to go with Tony Storm as a character? Because we all know Tony Storm loves her belt. We're going to have to see story-wise where he's now a babyface. I don't know the entire context of it, but I did see the clip of him and Luchasaurus. I'm not going to call him Killswitch anymore. Luchasaurus reuniting, and Reef Crowd was singing and dancing to Tarzan Boy, which is great to see. And the AEW World Championship was on the line as Hangman Page defeated Kyle Fletcher to retain his World Championship. I heard this match went like 30 to 40 minutes, I believe. And I heard it was a pretty good match. Didn't watch the match again. I got to catch up on All Out. But this match being the main event was a little weird, considering there's a lot of other credible contenders. I'm not saying Kyle Fletcher's not credible. I think Kyle Fletcher's a future world champion, but I think it was a little bit too early for Kyle Fletcher to go after the AEW World Championship, considering right now he is the TNT champion. You know what I'm saying? But and from what I heard, the match was pretty good. But that begs the question: where is Kyle Fletcher going to go from here? You know what I'm saying? Where is Kyle Fletcher going to go from there? And at the end of the day, is AEW, when the time comes, going to pull the trigger on Kyle Fletcher? We're going to have to wait and see. But as expected, Hangman Page got the win and retained the AEW World Championship. So that was All Out for you guys. That was All Out. Overall, All Out was not a bad show from what it looks like. A lot of people were even saying that All Out was actually a better show than WrestlePalooza. I can't really give you guys my opinion on that, considering I haven't even watched All Out yet, but knowing what happened at WrestlePalooza, I definitely have high faith that this show, definitely from a quality standpoint, did better than WrestlePalooza. Moving on. Continuing on with the WrestleHavoc podcast. What are my thoughts on this topic that came up? This topic came up, and Tony Khan was actually asked this on the AEW All Out Media Scrum. He was commented on the future of the start times for his AEW pay-per-views. If you guys do not know, the last two, or at this point, 3 AEW pay-per-views, that being All In, Forbidden Door, and All Out, all had a 3 p.m. start time. And Tony Khan was asked about running more pay-per-views at an earlier start time. We all know why. For these particular shows, for 2 shows exactly, AEW had a 3 p.m. start time. And those shows I'm talking about were All In and All Out. We all know why. Number one, WWE had Saturday night's main event. They literally announced Saturday night's main event like a couple months prior, and they wanted to go head-to-head with AEW, but AEW moved All In, which was taking place in Texas. So if it had started at 8 p.m., it would have been great, because it wouldn't have affected us at all. He moved All Out from 8 p.m. start time to a 3 p.m. start time. We all know why Tony Khan moved All Out from an 8 p.m. start time to a 3 p.m. start time, and it was taking place in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's because WWE announced shows, and WWE wanted to counter-program AEW with another show. And I look at that scenario and actually appreciate the fact that Tony Khan did that. A lot of people were saying, oh, why doesn't he mention that WWE was the reason why he moved it? Yes, we all know it was the reason why. As a promoter, you got to save face. And that's what people need to understand. Why do you think Triple H answers the questions the way that he does, especially in those old press conferences? You know, the promoters always save face. It's not just wrestling promoters. It's MMA promoters. It's boxing. It's the same thing. But with Forbidden Door, we all know why that had an earlier start time, because it was in the UK. But he actually was asked about this at the All Out Media Scrum, and he responded. And he said this, and I quote, "It's been tremendous for 3 straight pay-per-views. I think to the point you're making it, definitely something to take into consideration. And we've had great results, great buys from the UK. The TV ratings in the UK are through the roof. And I'm really glad you asked that, because that's absolutely one of the considerations we thought about here. And whether it's Saturday or Sunday, it's definitely giving me something to think about." What are my thoughts on this? Personally, I do not know. Now, it all depends on WWE and their counter-programming tactics, because I actually believe this could possibly happen. Like, AEW announces a show here in the East Coast, right? Like, for example, I'm from New Jersey, and I definitely plan on going to Full Gear at the Prudential Center. And I assume WWE is going to have a show to counter program that show. And AEW is going to want to move that show. If WWE wants to go head to head, AEW is going to want to move that show to an earlier start time, but then WWE is going to start moving their start times as well. I definitely see WWE doing something like that. WWE has gone to the point where they are literally not afraid to show their true colors. Like, they're literally not afraid. Like, literally not afraid. Like, they will flat out say, and they haven't yet, but they will flat out say at some point, be like, yeah, we just want to sabotage them. Like, they don't care. They don't care about all the shady money that they make regarding Saudi Arabia. They don't care. They do not care. They're at the point now where they're just wanting to make their money regardless of what cost it is. Like, they are not afraid to showing their true colors. They're just not. But another thing that you really need to take into consideration regarding these pay-per-views is the length of these shows. I've been very critical of AEW and the fact that they they would announce like maybe 2 or 3 important matches in advance, like a couple of weeks before the show, which is what you're supposed to do. But like literally in the last week or two before the actual pay-per-view, they will throw like 10 extra matches on the card. On one hand, I understand because you're paying $50, or if you're paying $40, considering now the pay-per-views are on HBO Max, I understand you're paying that amount of money for those shows, and AEW wants to give you the bang for your buck. I understand that. But at the same time, you need to understand the philosophy of quality over quantity. It's so weird. A lot of people criticize WWE for their 5-match cards, and a lot of people actually advocate for WWE to really maybe extend that length to maybe 6 or 7 matches, which is like my limit right there. And a lot of people criticize AEW's pay-per-views for being too long. There's literally no balance with the two promotions. There's literally no balance at all. No balance whatsoever. In my opinion, I think it all depends on the business that they generate. I mean, from what it looks like, earlier start times for these AEW pay-per-views tend to do the exact same amount of buys that, let's just say, a normal AEW pay-per-view that would take place here in the East Coast would generate. Like, I don't think the earlier start times is affecting their pay-per-view buy rates in any way, shape, or form. Like, I don't think they're affecting it at all. I personally don't think that they're affecting it in any way, shape, or form. And in my opinion, I think it's actually a smart move if they want to move their pay-per-views to an earlier start time permanently, considering the fact that it's much easier for a fan to watch a super long show at 3 p.m. compared to them starting to watch a longer show, or compared to them watching a longer show that starts at 8 p.m. Because think about this. If you have a super long show at 3 p.m., it's probably going to end around 8. If you have a super long show that starts at 8, you're probably going to have a show that will probably end by 1 a.m. So that's a consideration that people need to really understand. Moving on. Hangman Page actually talked about WWE and their counter programming. He was asked about that, actually. And he stated this, and I quote, "It's a great question because I think that's the assumption would be to be what we're talking about. It's what we're worried about. But the honest truth is that it's not remotely. It's something that we see coming, and when it does happen, it's like, okay, yeah, I figured. We're so focused on what we do here. We've got over 13,000 people in the building today who came to see us. All those people that buy those pay-per-views, they are here to watch us. That's what we're focused on. I know that might not be what you'd assume is happening, but what the talk is, but that's the honest truth. We're so committed and so focused on putting forth the best effort we can, and that's all on our mind." And this is also, and the reason why I mentioned this statement by Hangman Page is I actually believe this statement. If you look at this all-out card, it's not like anything grandiose or anything out of the blue, if you really think about it. It's nothing really like super shocking to anybody if you really want to take things into consideration. Normally, when both shows go head to head, you would assume both shows to go balls to the wall. AEW was literally delivering exactly the way that they would produce whether or not WWE was counter programming or not. What I see regarding AEW's reaction to WWE's counter programming is I feel like they are actually doing the right thing,
and no selling the entire situation. Oh, but they sold it when they moved the show. Yeah, but that's moving a show. That's moving a show. I'm talking about from a booking standpoint. They're literally changing nothing. They're not changing their plan. Like I feel like they don't care that WWE is going head. And you know what? That's great. Because at the end of the day, the best thing that you could possibly do is put on the best show that you possibly can. That's what people need to understand. But yeah, those are my thoughts on All Out and WrestlePalooza. But another news, Stephanie McMahon is a part of the WWE Hall of Fame. They've announced her as a part of the Hall of Fame. WWE also announced the Crown Jewel Championship for next month. They did something similar last year with Cody and Gunther, with Cody facing off against Gunther, and Gunther was the world champion. Cody was the world champion. Both champions face off, and whoever wins in this non-title contest will win the Crown Jewel Championship. In my opinion, I don't like the idea of the Crown Jewel Championship, especially from a booking standpoint, because it risks one of the champions to lose or possibly get, pinned, which I think is really dumb. But WWE's doing it again this year, and we're going to be getting Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, which in and of itself is a big match, but still, you risk the possibility of either Cody Rhodes or Seth Rollins losing. I think it's kind of dumb, and they're fighting for, if you really think about it, they're fighting for a trophy title. They're not really fighting for an actual title. So really, what is the point of the Crown Jewel Championship? That's just my opinion, but yeah, it is what it is. Also on the AEW front, Tony Khan has an important announcement set for Dynamite. Remember a couple of years ago where it was like almost every week on Dynamite where Tony Khan always had an important announcement or a huge announcement? And look, some of these announcements were big, like the purchase of Ring of Honor, the announcement of the first AEW All-In at Wembley Stadium. And I say the first AEW All-In because the first All-In was not an AEW show. It was like the prototype to AEW, but you get my drift. The announcement of the return of CM Punk, whether or not that was a huge announcement or not. Is Tony Khan going to overhype this? I have absolutely no idea, but he's calling it an important announcement. So remember the words. But a lot of people are assuming, they're announcing the show to go head to head with Saudi Arabia, which is another story for another time. But we'll go more in depth with it next week on the podcast when we talk about whether or not WWE or AEW should put a show head to head against WrestleMania. It's a very interesting topic that we need to talk about, but we're running out of time over here. But Tony Khan has an important announcement. Some people are saying women's tag titles. I have no idea what this announcement is going to be, but he's going to be making that announcement live this Wednesday on AEW Dynamite, emanating from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, live on TBS and HBO Max. So yeah, that was the WrestleHavoc Podcast from Sunday, September 21st, 2025. Thank you guys so much for joining me, not only on the WrestleHavoc channel, but also the people that are watching me not only on the WrestleHavoc channel, but also WNN platforms, that being the WNN YouTube channel and Facebook page. I thank you guys so much for watching me on those platforms as well. Without any further ado, please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc channel, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the friggin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. As always, it is yours truly, Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace.